It's Thursday, 16th November 2017. It's 5:05 p.m. Caroline and Uma with you. And our first story of the day, we're going back and focusing on that personal data breach, the one we were talking about a few weeks ago, in which millions and millions of numbers were actually, could be leaked, could be hacked. We haven't got the proper terminology yet because nobody can decide what happened from all of our major network providers, our telcos, our ISPs, and even some medical organizations as well, right?
Yeah, but there was an individual who tried to, bring this to light to help, consumers whose data may have been breached. So there's a site, which is saikonhack.com, a verification website actually created by tech blogger Keith Rosario. He created it last Sunday to assist the public in finding out if their personal data was breached. It has since, I think, just according to latest reports, it's since been taken down.
Well, it's been blocked by the MCMC. It hasn't been taken down.
Yep.
Now, this is it's a very interesting site. So I put in my details there as well, and turns out, yes, my number was one of those that had been breached, and it actually listed. So what it does is it lists down the numbers, your cell phone numbers that may be associated with that account, right? Or with your IC number. Now, a lot of people who had tried it found that there were numbers listed down that they had no idea they owned. So that means that means the data has been used for nefarious purposes. That means your name and IC number has been used to register either prepaid or postpaid lines that you have no idea you own.
Yeah. I'm, heading towards the direction of it's pointless trying to recover. In that we've spoken with numerous tech and safety experts who have said that complete security is next to impossible. You want to be prepared for everything to be leaked. And if that's the case, I'm just wondering whether or not prevention should include then being able to discern whether or not sensitive information needs to be shared with anyone, because it's very much the norm for us, right? When we fill forms in, we just assume that all the information they're asking for is stuff that they require.
Yes.
But it's stuff that they require. When we just filling out. Why do we need to provide our MyCard IDs for, say, buying a pair of discounted shoes, for example?
Correct.
Yeah.
So, now MCMC has kind of blocked this site, and I think a lot of critics of the site were like, you're still putting your IC number into this site to find out whether you've been hacked or not, and that could be dangerous, right? Now, I'm in complete disagreement with that, if only for this one reason. The IC is the most important document that we own, and yet it is also the most flippant document that we own. We allow security guards at apartments to take photos of our IC on their cell phones. We hand it over willy-nilly without asking any questions.
Yeah.
So, we actually don't treat the IC as if it's that important, right? And so with that in mind, actually, it's not very difficult to get your IC number. So I would rather know if my information has been compromised.
Yeah, of course. But I think the point is whether or not this site is legitimate, because it's one of many, many different sites out there asking for you to type in your IC number. So
that's true.
Is it another con? Who's to know?
It's also important to note that while the MCMC have blocked this site now, it feels like a cover-up, right? Because the authorities have not been forthcoming with any information. Sure, investigations are underway, but if it's something it's as major as this, if it's what was the number, Caroline? Over 46 million mobile subscribers in Malaysia. That's a huge number. There should be some transparency in getting this information out to us, so we're not suspicious of everything.
Yeah, fair enough.
Now, joining us on the line is CF Fong. He is the CEO of LGMS, a cybersecurity company. Thanks so much for joining us, Fong. How does this website work? Where did saikonhack.com get the data?
Is according to the blog, what I understand is that they get the data from the 46 million leak database. It's basically the same data, and users just need to go to the website, Saikonhack website, and key in their IC number to check whether the data is found in the leaked database or not. I think the author would have a very good idea, where the data came from.
Right. So cybersecurity specialists are actually warning the public not to use online services like these to check their data. So perhaps you can explain what they're concerned about.
Well, my personal view is this. There's a very thin line between being ethical and unethical. By building such a website, meaning that you also have a copy of the data. Now, do we want to have multiple copies of the data exist, made available onto the internet? That's question number one. The second thing is, just imagine this: if I also have a copy of the data. I'm also building similar websites, but at the same time, multiple people also doing the same thing, then I think we'll be having a chaos. So from my perspective is that if we really want to check whether we are affected or not by the telco data leak, right, the best way is to just contact your telco, give them your IC number and see what are the numbers that's registered under IC number. And that's the proper way to check.
In your position as a cybersecurity specialist, what would you have done if you had the leaked data?
Well, I personally will not condone such action. If I was the person who got a copy of the database, I would have just handed it over to the authority. And whoever who came to me and asked me whether their data is contained in the leaked database, I would ask them to check with the authority as well. I wouldn't be the party that is hosting this database and also having a copy of this data and be a broker to tell the public whether their data is in this database or not. That also means that I also, in a way, accountable for the data that I'm currently having. You see, what kind of assurance that I can give to the public that the copy of my database will not be leaked out or, be copied by another hacker or another person. So that's the reason why, back to my personal view, is that if I would have this database, I wouldn't create a website like this. But instead, I will, in my blog, I will just advise whoever public, if they're concerned about the data leak, just contact the authority or the telco directly.
Okay, so where to from here, I guess? What's the next step for the authorities now?
I think the authorities still owe the public explanation of how the data leak took place. And I guess the public is still kind of curious to understand the whole situation.
Right, so what can we do at this point? I mean, we can change our phone numbers and maybe even our home address, but we can't change our IC number.
Well, there isn't much we can do in terms of IC number, though. But I think a lot of people are very concerned about the phone number cloning, the SIM card cloning. Just to share with you some details about that, because we're also working with certain parties in this area. It's not that easy to clone a SIM card, by the way. For the public, common best practices apply. I mean, don't simply post your identity, anything related to your personal online, on the family online, like your personal pictures, your family pictures online. Change your password often, use a strong password. That same principle applies. Unfortunately, for this case, there isn't much we can do about our IC number.
Fong, thank you so much for speaking to us. That was CF Fong, CEO of LGMS, a cybersecurity company. He's absolutely right. The authorities need to be transparent and give us a little more information. They also need it. We've had such a tough time calling people up and asking them to comment on the story, whether it's a telco or the authorities, right?
Yeah.
And if they're not even forthcoming about what's going on, I don't know if they're going to be forthcoming when you call and say, hey, this is my IC number. Can you tell me if my data has been leaked? So I, for one, am thankful that there is some avenue. I understand the risks, but I was really curious as to whether or not I was one of those people who was compromised.
I think you are.
I'm compromised in many, many ways. We've got more stories coming your way. We're going to be talking about illegal investment schemes after this. Don't go anywhere. This is the Evening Edition's Top 5 at 5 on BFM.